they were interviewing Angela Wood, a very dear, dear, dear close friend of mine. And yeah, she's going to talk to us about resilience and health. Hello, Angela. She's one of the strongest people I know, also one of the most beautiful people I know, like physically, but also on the inside. She's an inspiration, and I hope you guys enjoy this.
Hello!
Hi, Angela.
Too sweet. I'm
Oh,
already
I missed you.
blushing.
I love the bangs.
Thanks. Yeah, did it myself. You can't see half
So
of it because
cute.
some of it didn't work.
Girlfriend, you've always been so good.
We
Oh,
do
thank you
what
so
we
much for
can.
joining me for my talk
Thank you.
show or whatever this is. So how you been? How's the isolation
Good.
going?
I I don't know. It's been at first I found it easier, and now I'm kind of going through days where it's kind of hard to realize what is normal life anymore. So yeah, it's
Mm,
interesting.
mm.
Yeah.
Are you like sticking to like a routine, or are you just kind of taking it day by
Ooh.
day?
So I had spent 2 weeks with my boyfriend in London, and that had been really lovely, and we had a really good routine where we would do a lot of cooking, a lot of cleaning. I think everyone's kind of been doing the same sort of things through isolation, and um, we'd try to make time for kind of arts, like paper cranes, and he would draw, or baking a lot of banana bread, as much
Mm,
dancing as possible. My family in Colorado, yeah. After about 2 weeks, it just seemed they kind of wanted me home. They thought it would be just a bit safer, so I gave in, and it's been over a month I've been here now, and it's been really nice to have space. Um,
yeah.
I've been doing some kind of alternative exercising, some major experiments in the kitchen, which is good that I have time and not too much judgment. And I've been kind of catching up with some old friends. And I've actually been mentoring a couple younger dancers out here in Colorado, which has been sweet remotely.
Oh,
Just something to keep me going, thinking about ballet. So not much routine, but I think that's been nice for us. We usually have such strict schedules. It's kind of been a step back and a lot more time to think about it all. So that's been me.
mm. Oh, nice. Some remote coaching. That's awesome.
Yeah,
So
it's been neat.
could you tell us a little bit about like where you're, just a little overview, like where you're from, where you were trained, a quick
Mm,
overview of your career.
yeah, a quick overview. So I started dancing when I was 10, here in Colorado with this amazing teacher, Patty Hoffman, at Ballet Society, and did a few little summer intensives, but ended up going to Royal Ballet School for just 2 years. And then right after that, I joined E&B. So I've been at E&B ever since. And I think I met you maybe my fourth or fifth year there. So we've had that time together. So E&B has been my only company.
Mm, me too.
Yeah.
I don't know any differently. I don't know any differently. So could you tell us about like some of your favorite things about being a ballerina and like why do you dance? Why do you love
Yeah.
it?
I think something that I've realized in the last 2 years, I love that when we're in the studio and being a ballerina, it's almost you're almost authorized to access your feminine qualities more than I think we feel like we can access them in the society we live in right now. I think so much has happened with women that we feel like we have to be so strong in a sense, and so ready to fight or whatever. And I think what ballet does for me is it reminds me what it means to be a woman, and in finding that delicate movement or that feminine quality, then you access this incredible strength that can come out through aggression. It can come out through anything. It's just a different kind of sense of strength. So I think I love that about ballet. And also I love the physical aspect of it, how athletic it is. Um, the other thing I really love is musicality, and how you can see someone else moving. You can totally see their personality in how they interpret the music or how they play with the music. So I love how it's such a personal form of artistry.
I always tell people that you're like one of the sweetest people I've ever met, like in life.
Let me tell everyone, there was a time when Presh and I were roommates for 3 years, and we had just moved into this beautiful flat that we fought for to rent. And I had slept in one of the first days, totally missed my alarm. And and I was going to be late for work. And Precious comes in and knocks on the door and has made my favorite soy chai latte coffee. And she's gently saying, Angela, I think you missed your alarm. It was the sweetest thing ever.
Oh, you're like such a giver. No, I'd never known anyone who'd ever been that generous before. Like, yeah. So anyways,
Takes one to know one. Takes one to know one.
Can you tell us about like some of your favorite roles as a dancer? Some of your favorite like memories.
Yes, some favorite memories and roles. I think we've had so many amazing shows with people like Alina Kujikaru, and so many shows where I just loved being whatever role I was in the corps, just witnessing whatever was going to happen and seeing such a high level of artistry. So I've loved observing while on stage. And for my roles, I think when Forsythe came to work with us, I think we had the best time with him. That was so challenging, but such a fun way to move and access those different qualities. And I loved how he worked with us. I think I think that's one of the top moments for me.
I think a lot of people say like when Forsyth came around, it was like those were like the top, like, those were some of the best moments, and that's when everyone's like, this is why I became a dancer. It was for this like connection with a choreographer and like this feeling that he gives you. Really, the reason why I had you on was because you were always doing like interesting exercises, and you were always doing like, and then I'm like, oh, I gotta try that out. Like what is she doing? And then it's like I discover a whole new set of muscles. And so could you tell us about like perhaps just touch on whatever you want to touch on, just like your journey, like injuries that you've had, things that you've come back from.
I think most dancers think when you join a company, you don't really factor injuries into your future. So for me, I really struggled when I got my injuries. At first it was just a few sprained ankles and pulled hamstrings and simple things that we kind of all might get, but although those can take a really long time. So I learned a lot from those, but I had two major ankle operations. One took me probably only 4 months, and another one took almost 5 or 6 months to come through. And then I also had a slipped disc in my neck. So I think through those, there was a major mental aspect to recovering, and just remembering kind of who you are and overcoming a lot of insecurities. And then there's also the physical aspect of what exercises can I do, what is actually gonna make my body remember how to move. So I think the mental aspect was probably the thing that really changed me as a person. And especially when you're younger and you have an injury, I was quite shy with how people would respond to me being injured. And I think so many dancers are really scared of reporting injuries. But one thing I learned after recovering from an injury is that when the pain is gone, that's kind of reminds you of the pain that you did have. And I think a lot of people, especially if an injury takes a long time, you start to think is this all in my head? Am I ever going to recover? Am I just scared? So I think that was the big thing I learned was time is really a #1 factor in recovery, and you can't always rush the time or control the time. We have this incredible dance psychologist at ENB, Irina Roncaglia, and she, one of the first things she told me that really changed part of my view was the fact that whenever we would get injured or anything would happen that was kind of outside of our perfect plan, that we would adopt coping techniques and coping mechanisms, and that everyone, whatever you're going through that you feel a bit attacked or not in control of, you're going to find ways to cope with it. And for a long time I just felt lost and I had no idea how to cope. So I had worse habits or worse ways of looking at things. And then she asked me what I thought of the word resilience. So she asked, what do you visualize when you hear the word resilience? And for me, I thought, oh, a tree that's really strong and just standing up straight, and if anything hits it, it just bounces off and it's just so strong. And she said that was completely wrong. She said, actually, what you should be picturing is a tree, but anything that comes at it, it needs to have some sort of bounce back. She said, if you're just rigid and strong, it'll come at you and you'll break. And when she said that, when she said it's more about the flow of any circumstance that comes at you and how you accept it, acknowledge it, and shift with it, totally changed my view on who I was, what I was going through, and how I could approach getting over the injury. She also told me there are ways to kind of forget everything else that's going on with your injury, whether you're having a difficult time progressing or anything, and just focusing on the things that you're finding helpful. That really helped me, making lists of what's my top goal. Like I see in 3 months we have these shows and I really want to be doing this role in it. And she would help me kind of list under there, that means you need to try this approach. And then once you're there, what do you need to make that goal? And it went all the way just to waking up and being happy to be getting coaching or something like that. And that really helped. That really helps.
So kind of backtracking from like the main goal all the way to like, what do I need to do tomorrow?
Exactly.
Kind of thing.
So it would make it more accessible.
Acknowledging. I had to learn how to like listen to like what was happening, you know, and acknowledge it, and then accept the fact that like I have to stop for a while and like, you know, which is hard. Acceptance. Yeah. I
think also we're definitely bred to have some sort of perfectionist mentality. And I think when you have to let that go, if you've had an injury, that really changes who you are. And it took a really long time for me to be okay with that, because I loved having exact times, exact schedules, exact exercises. And when I couldn't have some of those, I definitely, my self-worth changed, and my like body image and how you see how you look, and also time and where you thought you'd be in a certain time. And actually I think that was one of the best things to happen to me as a person, was losing my hopes of my perfect routine or perfect progression. It made me a lot more empathetic when I would see what other people were going through, and it also made me feel more beautiful for whatever I had overcome. And I think that's what I love hearing from ballet dancers, especially, is how they have kind of come anew in themselves by whatever they've discovered, however they broke down, how they built back up is so intriguing.
So that's why I like hearing about like your journey, because like you're such a beautiful woman, and like, you know what I mean, like all of like the things that happened in your past, that it makes you who you are today, you know. And like hearing you speak now, like your perspective is just like so, and it's only once you've gone through like serious injuries or, you know, been broken down and rebuild yourself back up, do you have that perspective, like that newfound perspective?
Yeah.
Because before you have that first injury or like that first thing that really knocks you down a peg, you know, like you don't have a clue what pain is, like what, like mental health, like getting over it.
Yeah.
And I think back to like the old me before I'd ever had an injury or something. I didn't have a clue, and I was like walking around town like I did, you know?
Yeah, it's so true. And it's true. I think also the world that we live in is so fast and so quick paced that there's not really a lot of time to go to the side, and if someone does have an injury, to talk through so much with them, because you have a show to put on or you have a rehearsal to catch, and it's such a high stress job in a way. I think whenever I get a bit of insight from an older dancer about something they survived, it would mean the world to me. And I think there was one question that you had sent me about what kind of dark times looked like in injuries, and I just remember there were some times where, and I'm just saying this so that if anyone's had an injury, they can relate. There were times where I would wake up and it was even out of my mind to even brush my teeth or to even get out of bed. It was just totally beyond me because of all the other stresses I knew I'd have to face that day, with injuries or telling someone an injury wasn't better and things like that. And there was even a point where I had gotten so low that I would cover my mirrors and I would just try to totally escape the world. And I think that's especially, well, not just being a woman, but when you have there's such a pressure on your beauty and how people look at you. I think that really makes things like injuries harder and time that it takes to recover. And I think that's why I hope one of the number one things I did learn about injuries is just that factor of time and trusting the process, and also not losing hope. One of our good friends, Amelia Katherine, always has this saying that hope is the last to die, and it's so true. I think we keep on coming back to that one a lot.
Yeah.
Even when things seem totally outside of ourselves or difficult or unfair, we see what kind of state the world is in now, and we see people are still surviving. And yeah, it's very interesting.
This right now is the perfect example of like how hope is the last to die, because it's kind of like it's been 2 months of like lockdown, and it's like hard, and we have to slow down. We have to trust the process. We have to trust time as like the healer.
We do.
Yeah, and it's like literally it's like we're all just holding on to hope that like there will be a better tomorrow or whatever, like that we will be free, or like that there will be a solution to this,
month.
or you know, a better you know. And so yeah, like hope is the last to die, because it's like the thing that keeps everyone going, especially people who are in really tough situations and stuff. Like it's only once you've been through it do you like empathize, like you said. Yeah. So I wanted to ask if like when you're dancing or training, do you have like an inner dialogue with yourself? Like do you have like an inner voice, like through the times when you've had to come back from injuries, or like or even when you're at your peak, like what does your internal like voice sound like? What does it say?
Yeah, that's a great question. That is a great question. I think coming off of the injury idea, one of the first things that I had to think about was not having any thoughts. And that was really hard for me because I love overanalyzing things. I think a lot of dancers do. And that was the hardest thing for me, just injuries wise, was turning off my thoughts and being like, okay, like one foot in front of the next, and combining it with the Pilates women that we had who were amazing, or people like Helen Wellington, and also Barry Drummond and his whole technique and how the body has to move naturally. So I think once I turned off my thoughts and found kind of a natural way of moving again, then I look at some of the dancers in our company and I try to pick up some things. We have so many talented dancers at ENB. And I try to pick bits that I see from their qualities of movement. So like with Shiori, the dynamics. So sometimes I'll see how Shiori does something and then I'll be like, oh, okay, I need to move like that quickly, that precisely. Or then with Emma Hawes, just the it's like she's floating all the time. So another word I'll think of is float. And then with you, and one word I think of is just ooze and groove, because how you move is so gooey. I know everyone says gooey, but the way you move is so gooey and delicious. So I think some of those words are what I try to think of when I'm dancing, even just things like space and stretching and trying to have the best moment with that one exercise. Yeah.
Is there anything like in life that you would consider like your kryptonite or like a weakness or like a thing that just like you have like no self-control or willpower about?
That is another great question. And my first thought is probably I'm just such a sucker for a boozy brunch that I could do that my whole life. I could have boozy brunch my whole life, especially with you guys and Ren. But I think one thing that really gets me, and sometimes it brings out my worst side in the dance world, is when I see, or just in the world in general, is when I see some sort of injustice, or if someone's really suffering and they've been working really hard. And maybe that goes along with the injuries. When you see something that there's just no way around, that they can't kind of get back what they gave, or if an injury happens to someone and it kills me, just to think of how people suffer and how things can be unfair in the world. And
yeah,
sleeping in as well has been a pretty big kryptonite.
It's hard right now. I was just talking to Angelique this morning about, because I think she was quarantining with 2 other people, but they've all gone home now because I think they were just like, okay, too much time together. And she was like, I have like no motivation now that I have 0 people around me, like, because now she's just going to be by herself for like a week or 2.
Yeah.
And I was like, when you don't have other people around motivating you, it's like, what's the point? Like, what's the point, you know?
And when you can't see the future day that you're back, or the future day you can see a friend, then it's so hard to find. And there is a time where it's so nice to develop your own sort of what you haven't had time for. But
so I heard you're learning Japanese.
Yes, I have been learning Japanese. It's a really beautiful language. It took me a couple weeks before I just decided to stick with Duolingo, and it's so competitive on that app. Oh my gosh, it is so competitive. The people trying to get to the number 1. I made it to number 1 at one point, but it was only for a day.
Oh my God, that's amazing.
I know, that was really good, but it was because Ren had kind of helped me begin with some of the alphabets. That's one interesting thing about Japanese, is they have 3 alphabets. So you have to learn 3 different alphabets, hiragana, katakana, and kanji. Kanji is more of the old Chinese, and hiragana is what they use. But actually, I find it so funny. The second alphabet they have, katakana, is basically a real trick on my brain, because it's Japanese pronunciation of English words or foreign words.
But you remember when we toured to Japan? I was like, okay, yeah, it sounds like super, super hard, but like 3 alphabets, like totally
3
different.
Alphabets. Completely different structure as well. When you think about saying a sentence, instead of saying I ate fish, you have to say I fish ate. So it just totally changes although there are some aspects that are easier, they don't have feminine and masculine descriptions for the sentence structure.
Oh,
And
okay.
the verb never changes. Eats or eat, it's just the same, which in a
Okay.
way is nice. It's not a
Oh.
sexist language.
Like no conjugating like in like French or Italian or like every other language.
Yeah.
Oh,
So
okay. So it's a
that's,
trade-off, I guess.
yeah.
I can't wait to like see you and Ren speaking Japanese together. I just think that's the cutest thing ever. Like
Be sweet. It's my goal. It may take forever.
No. Not with the Duolingo. It sounds I didn't even know that they had like a competitive side to the app. That'll keep
Oh,
you going.
me neither. Definitely gotten so competitive. First thing in the morning, and I'm like trying to cram a lesson in. Yeah.
So could you tell us like if there is anything that you've perhaps like discovered since having all this time that you're gonna try to keep in your life? I mean, I'm guessing probably Japanese, but is there
Mm,
anything else that you've kind of been able to dig your
yeah.
hands into?
Yeah. I think I have definitely enjoyed learning a new language has been good for my brain. One thing that I've always found I'm just not a natural at all is cooking. So I've been doing a lot of massive experiments, and I only recently discovered chicken thighs are 100 times better than chicken breasts. So that's been a revelation. And mainly, I mean, you and Amelia were whizzes in the kitchen at Rugby Mansion. So I've kept some of your recipes, but also just Ren is an amazing cook, so that's inspired me to learn
Mm.
some of their techniques and their recipes. One thing that I've been thinking about a lot lately, actually, especially since we have so much time on our hands,
Hmm.
is and it's so easy to fall into like a situational sort of depression, which I went through a lot with injuries and things. I've
Mm.
heard, I don't know if it came from Eckhart Tolle, and he talks a lot about the ego, meaning like the human, how the human recognizes itself. Um, and I heard, I can't remember who I heard this idea from, but they talk about the difference between self-discipline and self-actualization. And that really helped me when I would go through phases where I would think, oh, I'm not doing my exercises enough. I'm not eating healthy enough. I'm not meeting these goals that I have for myself. And I was viewing it as I didn't have enough self-discipline. And one thing that just totally changed that for me, and I guess it plays into mindfulness and like a lot of books that I remember you reading, um, and changing that view of self-discipline into self-actualization and realizing who you are and what makes you feel good anyways. And I think that's been really uh, life-changing in a way for me, is realizing, oh, I do feel better when I do really simple exercises, like when I'm just laying on the ground and grinding into a hip, or doing something that I enjoy instead of something I think I need to do, or if I'm cooking something I enjoy instead of something I think I need to cook, or if I'm dancing in a way that I enjoy instead of dancing in a way I think someone wants to see, sort of thing. So I think
Mm.
that's really helped my approach to making sure I'm progressing, and however I hope to progress is actualizing instead of trying to discipline. Yeah.
That's deep. A
Yeah.
bit of Eckhart Tolle. I love that.
Yeah.
Mm. Oh, is that coffee? Is that a bit of Angela iced coffee?
It sure is. My dad is a coffee nerd, and he's been roasting
Really?
his own coffee. So
Oh
I've
my
been
gosh.
taking full advantage of that.
Like having a
And
coffee a day was great,
then
but then
every
it's like, no,
day
no,
is
no,
a
you need to have
win.
4. I was like, oh my
Yeah.
God, this is a whole nother level of productivity.
Yeah.
Sorry, there's a delay on here, so I think that's why there's a delay. But do you remember I went to go see you in the hospital? It was after I think your second ankle surgery. Do you remember that? And
Yes.
they brought in like some tea. I think because like you had a guest or whatever because I was there. They brought tea and coffee, and we were like, wouldn't it be odd? Like, how come no one's discovered this? But if you just mix the tea and the coffee together.
Oh my gosh, I do remember that.
Do you remember that?
I was so high when that was going on, but I remember that.
And we thought we were like onto something, or like I thought we were onto something. It was probably disgusting.
I think you're.
So, are you listening? Can you tell us about like some of the stuff that you're listening to? You always discover cool music.
Ooh, so some cool music. Is actually, do you remember when we went to see So Far Sounds and we met that girl Anna PANCALDI? So
Yeah.
she's. I ended up going to a few of her little home concerts because I just fell in love with how she sings and what she sings about, and sometimes it's about loss or about hope, all of that. And she's come out with a few new songs that I'm just dying over. So I've been listening to Anna PANCALDI. I have you to thank for that, actually, dragging us to So Far Sounds. I've been kind of listening to, you know, SHARON, EYAL, the contemporary choreographer, and she just has such sick pieces with such sick music. And I didn't realize she has her own composer. His name, I've written it down, is LICHTIK. And some of his music is just, it's so easy to put it on and just get in a groove. So I've been turning those. I need to be moving. Okay. All hail SHARON.
Where can we find this music? Is it on the Spotify or the SoundCloud or?
It is on Spotify.
Okay, fantastic.
I'm sure it could be on.
I'm all about discovering the niche stuff right now. I'm like, let me go deeper into the internet. Let me find this secret stuff, you know? Take me off the mainstream. Yeah.
LICHTIK. It's hard. I feel like phases of music. I go through phases of what I feel I need. And lately I've been needing to kind of like just bounce a little bit with movement. So that's what
that reminds me of when I mean these would have been early days, like years ago. I think even before Rugby Mansions. Yes. And we would go out, and then like the next day you'd be like, I felt great. I think it's just you just need to bounce. You need to get down, you need to bounce. It's natural.
So true. The shame about that was I could never perfect my shuffle. And you really have an incredible shuffle on you. You know, shuffle.
No.
You do.
You're such a great club dancer, like because you just like you're a groover, like you have like such a natural. Yeah, you do. Guys love it. The people love it. Oh my gosh.
Those feel like ages ago.
I know, it feels like a lifetime ago. I kind of like cannot believe. I keep like thinking, could you tell us, like, are you reading something? Are you Netflixing or?
Yes. So actually, since I've been in the States, my brother has this Hulu account, and there is this one show on it called Last Man on Earth. And it is just a hoot, especially, and I don't mean that to sound insensitive, but it also goes through the really lows of if you did lose everyone that you loved. And it's ironic, it's actually based on a virus wiping out most of the population. So
really,
that's been really intense to watch. Yeah. But we've been watching that. It's very highs and lows. So that's been a great show if anyone has access to it. We were also watching a lot of Blue Planet, just because, especially since I think once we're back to work, we're going to be working as much as we can to get everything back on the road. I'm trying to kind of make sure I'm seeing the world and kind of having a holiday right now. So looking at places like the ocean and what creatures do down in the ocean is just incredible. That's been really fun to get to.
Because your family's always kind of been into like snorkeling and scuba diving, right? Your dad is.
They have. It's so dangerous, but they are very into it.
I think that's so amazing. Amazing.
It's neat. Yeah, it is really, it's neat that they love it so much. I think this is another interesting fact I've heard lately, especially with kids not being able to go to school and learn, is apparently some schools have been asking their the parents of their students to make sure that their children are having enough kind of imagination time. And I know it sounds silly because I'm 28, but still I think it's so important that since we can't kind of be outside in the world and interacting with people we do and don't know, I've been taking sort of daydream breaks and been trying to kind of have some escape, which might be the Blue Planet, or I've been listening to a couple of audiobooks about different cultures, myths and legends, which has been very interesting. And I think most people I know, we're usually kind of nonfiction, like kind of self-help, self-whatever books, which is really good. It's priceless. But lately I've just been escaping, just pure fiction, pure what's going on in the deep sea.
I love that.
Really fun. Yeah.
This is like, that's exactly what you need right now, is a little escapism.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and I never thought I'd enjoy things like that so much. But I think it's a bit of a saving grace when we can't do much outside of our situations. And
amazing. It's true, like having healthy escapes, because a lot of people are turning to like really unhealthy like escapism right now.
True.
So yeah, like
hard to find
like healthy ways. Yeah. How's your mom?
She's great. Oh gosh, they're hilarious.
She's doing Emotion is Lotion, huh?
She's doing Barry's Motion and Lotion. She loves it.
Love it. I think I want to have Barry on next if I can get him.
I was gonna ask you. I was gonna say definitely get Barry on. Get him to talk about all the that pretty much everything he talks about sums up the physicality of my injury.
It was great to have you on, Angela. Thank you so much for sharing with us.
Thank you so much for thinking of me. It means so much.